Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. I've got a short article here to read for you all, and then a small presentation that I want to show you guys so that I can drive home a few points. So this article here, which was published yesterday, it says 10 years after the recession, Americans wake up to rising prices. And first, let me apologize for this. I'm not going to click on OK. I don't want this site to infest my computer with cookies. So I'm just going to leave it on there, and it's going to follow us all the way along. It says here, after, oh look at that, is it going to let me? Yes, it will. I thought it wasn't going to let me read anymore. It says here, after years of low prices, fed by near zero interest rates and a convalescing economy, Americans are waking up to costlier consumer living. Everyday household staples like diapers, toothpaste, shampoo, and dishwashing liquid, not to mention soft drinks, cookies, chocolate, cat litter, and autos, have all started getting more expensive, a trend expected to continue early next year. Announced by companies during the most recent earnings season, these price hikes have typically ranged from 2% to 10%. They also stand in stark contrast to the usually unending sales and promotions from major retailers like Walmart and Amazon. The higher prices aim to pad revenues for companies like Apple, which has just raised sticker prices for its new MacBook Air laptops and iPads by 20% and 25%. Wow, that's a lot. But for a growing number of businesses, they also represent a response to the mounting transportation costs. A stronger US dollar is simply cutting into foreign earnings, while a tight labor supply is at last pushing up wages. So having a low unemployment rate is good, and it's also bad in a way, because if you need to fill jobs, like right now I read somewhere or heard somewhere that there's about 6 million or so jobs in the US that need to be filled, but there are not enough qualified people to fill that job, to fill those jobs. So what's going to happen is that the more of a vacuum that there is in a certain field, the more that field is going to have to pay for labor, because labor works throughout the fundamentals of economics also, supply and demand. So for example, let me use a very simple example. Let's say that you were one of the people in New York City that works in the sewers, right? And you have to drudge through sewage waste to do your job. And I know that they do have some jobs like that in New York City where the people work in the sewers doing whatever it is that they do. So if they advertise a job like that for $30,000 a year, they probably wouldn't get very many people to work that job, because number one, the cost of living in New York City is pretty high, all right? And number two, it's a really dirty job that most people don't want to do, all right? And then throw in some qualifications on that too, like for example, what if the people that are doing those jobs need to have some kind of a certification, like an engineering degree or whatever it may be, okay? That also narrows the number of people that would be qualified to do that job. So if whoever is doing the hiring, if they can't get anyone at $30,000 a year, then they're going to have to offer it for $40,000. And if they can't get anyone, they're going to have to offer it for $50,000, etc., etc., until they can find a median where they can pay someone to actually do the job, because they'll do it for whatever they're paying it for. Okay, so you know, the unemployment rating, as fake as I think it is, you know, it also has some effect, or I won't say unemployment rating, I'll say the number of job openings that need to be filled will also have an effect on the cost of goods, because the more that a company has to pay for labor, the more that they are going to charge for the consumer item that they're selling or the service that they're selling. Okay, I hope that made sense. Let's see. Okay, U.S. auto giant General Motors upped the average price of its SUV crossover and pickups by $800, something the company ties to rising costs of steel and aluminum, commodities on which President Donald Trump slapped steep new import duties this year. American manufacturers are now paying 8% more for aluminum than they did a year ago, and 38% more for steel as local producers increase their prices. And here, check this out. So this is the key here. This is why I don't really think tariffs work. And I may get beat up by a few community members or people that listen to this video on this, because they may say, well, tariffs are good because they keep jobs in the US. Tariffs only do one thing. In the end, they increase prices for the consumer. And this is why. Look, so if we're putting a tariff on aluminum and steel that's coming into the country, right, then we should expect to either pay the same amount that we were paying before for the aluminum or steel items that we're buying, or less, right? That's what you would think. But no, since now we have to pay an additional 38% than what we were paying before for these items coming in, the local producers are like, wait a minute. And I'm going to put this in real simple terms also, okay? So let's say that I'm making, I just saw a video on stoves. Let's say that I'm importing steel to make a stove, and I'm selling the stove, and that steel that I'm importing is costing me $1 a yard, right? Now all of a sudden, that steel that I'm importing, or for example, let me go back here a little bit, and the steel that I'm importing costing me $1 a yard, right? But the steel that I could buy here in the US, it would cost me $1.10 a yard. So I'm gonna buy the steel that I can import for 10 cents cheaper than what I can get it in the US, right? That's what businesses do. They're in the business of making money. Okay? So now they slap a 38% tariff on the steel that I'm importing. So now what do? Do I pay for the steel that I'm importing 28 cents more per yard than what I can get it for locally? I'm going to be like, no, I'm just going to buy it locally now, because even though it's going to cost me an additional 10 cents a yard, I'm going to buy it locally, and then I'm just going to pass on that to the consumer, which is fine. But now the local producers of steel are like, wait a minute. If we increase our prices to just undercut what the tariffs are, instead of charging $1.10 per yard, now we can easily charge $1.25 or $1.28 per yard, because that's still going to undercut the imports by 10%. So people are still going to buy from us. So they are still providing you with the exact same item, but now because of the tariffs, all right, they can increase their prices as well, as long as they still undercut the tariff prices. Okay, so they just got a raise, and guess who's going to pay for their raise? You are. You're still getting the exact same product that you were getting before, but now because these tariffs were imposed, not only are the imported products going to be more expensive, but the locally made products, the products made here in the US, are going to be more expensive. Because if you're a smart businessman, you know that you have a range of how high you can go before your product is going to cost more than an imported product. You have to know that, because if you don't, and you start making a whole bunch of product that you're going to sell at a loss, then you're going to be out of business. So now these businesses here in the US are like, oh, wait a minute, we have tariffs on this and tariffs on that. Well, we can increase our prices now as long as we keep our prices under the amount of the tariff. That way we can still undercut the imported items. That's why I feel that in the end, the consumer pays more when tariffs are imposed. All right? And unless you have a lot of money and you don't care, about a 38% or a 30% increase on whatever, all right, you are going to care because it's going to affect your bottom line. So I hope that made some kind of sense. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, this article here seems to be making it somewhat political because they mention Trump's name so much. Let me just let you guys know, I'm not making this a political video, first of all. But before President Trump was elected, there were already over 12,000 items that the U.S. imposed tariffs on. Okay, so this is not a new phenomenon, right? It's a way that the citizenry has been getting fleeced for years. All right, just think about it. Think about if we cut out all our tariffs, if we cut out all of these regulations, if all of these things that impose regulatory taxes on items that we buy. Think about how much less expensive they would be. Just think about that. This was years ago, and I probably couldn't find the article now, but I do remember reading this. I remember reading, this was years ago, probably 10 years ago or more. I remember reading that this company, and I think it might have been in Michigan, not sure, but they used to make paper clips. And an overseas company started making paper clips and importing it to the US, okay? And the company here in the US had to go out of business because the company overseas that was selling it to the US, they were selling the finished product for a lesser price than what it would have cost the US company just to get the raw materials. Okay? But why is that? Has anyone ever asked themselves, why is that? More than likely is because wherever these paper clips were coming from, they weren't bombarded with regulation after regulation, after taxes, after regulation. They probably weren't bombarded with all that stuff. And they were able to produce a product that was just as good as the product that we manufacture here, but at a lesser price than what we have to pay for just for the raw product, you know, to even start making it. So it's like I said, take all these regulations and things out of the way. Of course, we're going to have to leave some regulations. There are some things that, you know, like you can't have a 3-year-old kid, you know, crawling into a machine to clean a little part that only a 3-year-old kid can do, you know, things like that, you know. But society will determine what those regulations should be by their actions, you know. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here, so let's go. The 10% duties Trump imposed in September on $200 billion in Chinese goods are also a drag for importers. Like GM, most businesses have tried to pass their costs onto consumers. Benno Dorer, chief executive of Clorox, told investors recently that doing nothing at this point is not an option. Half of the company's products will cost more next year. For the moment, Americans are willing to pay more with consumer confidence near record highs, businesses believe. GDP is indeed expanding above trend, and wages climbed nicely in October. You can only price where you have demand for your product, and we have greater demand than ever, Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian told investors on earnings calls. Faced with a $2 billion jump in fuel prices over a year, the airline raised ticket prices and expects further increase for most flights. Retailers and restaurants are also changing low price policies to protect their margins because of rising trucking and labor costs. Goods transportation costs jumped 7% in September, mainly due to a lack of truck drivers. Fast food restaurants chain Chipotle will charge 4% more for its burritos to help absorb a 27.2% jump in labor costs, according to Chief Financial Officer John Hartung. Fearing a consumer backlash, some businesses are considering alternatives, like rerouting their supply chains to circumvent tariffs. Shoe brand Stephen Madden wants to shift up half of its production toward other countries like Cambodia and is renegotiating contracts. We are working with our suppliers in China to provide us with better pricing, Chief Executive Edward Rosenfeld told investors. And that's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the main topic of this video is the fact that consumer prices are going up, and not just in one area, but in everything. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and show you all an example. And if you want to look this article up, just type in this title. All right, 10 years after the recession, Americans wake up to rising prices. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. This is what the dollar has done in the last 8 years. All right, so this here says food prices, $100 worth in 2000. This is how much you would have to spend today to get what $100 would get you in the year 2000. I mean, in the last 18 years. All right, so as you can see that in the last 18 years, food has inflated by 50%. So today you're paying 50% more on average, all right, for something that you paid in the year 2000. Okay, and now we're hearing from, like, the article that I just read, that next year prices are expected and will more than likely increase further, and increase at a more rapid rate. Okay, so what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is that the same thing that I've mentioned in past videos is we have been blessed with time. How we use that time and what we do with that time to prepare for the future is up to us. It's up to each individual person to determine, after being presented the facts, all right, or after being presented, because obviously I'm not a time traveler, I'm not supernatural or anything like that. You know, I'm reading this article and I believe it because they've got, you know, links, and they got, you know, graphs that have been taken and have been worked on, obviously. Okay, so, you know, you have to take it for what it's worth. But reading this article and comparing it to what I've been seeing with my eyes over the last several years, to me it makes sense. Because have I been seeing prices go up? Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'll go to the supermarket and I'll go to pick something up and I'll be like, oh my goodness, because the price didn't just go up by 2 cents or 3 cents. It went up by like 50 cents, like from one visit to another. All right, so this is your time to really consider, how prepared do you want to be? What do you want to spend your money on? What do you want to spend or use some of your wealth that you've accumulated on? Do you want to leave it in paper? All right, do you want to leave it in paper? Because if you would have saved the $100 bills from the year 2000, all right, today you'd be able to buy about half, or you would be able to buy about 2/3 of what you could since the year 2000. All right, so technically, all right, it's only inflated by 33%, you know, roughly. It's not really a 50% increase. All right, it's really more like a 33% increase, if I'm doing the math right. Okay, so, you know, do you want to hold on to that paper that you know that in another 10 years or 15 years is going to buy you half of what it buys you now? Or if it's only going to buy you 2/3 of what it buys you now? All right, so that's why I'm showing you this right here. Okay, so this here says food prices, but really the way I look at it is how much has the dollar been devalued over that time frame. All right, because 18 years ago, an apple, I'm pretty sure, roughly had about between 70 to 100 calories, depending on the size, right? So, you know, 18 years ago, if you went and bought an apple, you were guaranteed to be getting roughly 70 to 100 calories worth of nutrition, right? Today, if you go buy an apple, you're going to get roughly 70 to 100 calories worth of nutrition. So the value of that apple hasn't changed any. The apple is still an apple. So why is that apple now worth, you know, 50% more than what it was worth 18 years ago. It has nothing to do with the apple. It has to do with the dollar. Because today the dollar buys you less than it did 18 years ago. So that's my point. Do you want to be holding dollars? Yeah. I myself, yes, want to be holding some dollars, but I don't want to have my wealth in dollars. I want to have my wealth in tangible goods, things that I can touch, things that I can use, things that can be useful to other people that I maybe want to use it for barter, to get things that I may not have, things that I might have forgotten to, prep with, right? So that's the point on this chart that I'm showing you here is what would you rather hold on to? Okay, and I wanted to show you a couple of examples. So here in the year 2000, you can buy a Chevrolet Silverado, okay, the middle of the class extended cab, right? An extended cab, 4-wheel drive, okay, LS. That's like the middle of the class in 2000. The MSRP was $27,200, right? So let's just call it $27,000, okay? And that was for an extended cab, 4-wheel drive, okay, LS model. All right. So go ahead and fast forward. Where are we at? Here. Go ahead and fast forward to 2018. In 2018, you can get a regular Chevy Silverado, all right? A regular cab. It's not this one that you see on the picture. This one right here is the one on the farther end of the spectrum, the higher quality one. This one here is the $56,000 one, okay? But today in 2018, you can get a regular cab Silverado without any of the bells and whistles, really. A stick shift, all right? More than likely, it doesn't even have automatic windows. It has the regular roll-up windows, the old school ones, all right? You can get one of those for $28,000. So here, 18 years later, you're getting half the truck that you could 18 years ago for $1,000 more than what you could get a nicer truck 18 years ago. And I know some people are going to say, well, technology has gotten better, and the trucks here are actually nicer and all that, but ladies and gentlemen, this is how I look at it. A truck has 4 wheels, has a cab, has a bed, okay? And this truck right here back in 2000 was the truck to have. It was the nicest truck on the road, okay? So just like this truck here today is the truck to have. It's the nicest truck on the road to some people, unless you prefer Ford or Toyota or Nissan, whatever. But you're getting my point, all right? Things are always going to change, okay? But we still use roughly the same amount of steel to make this truck. It still has 4 wheels. We still use aluminum to make the rims, just like in the other truck. It still has headlights. It still has a windshield. All right? This is the same darn truck as the year 2000. All right? It's just a different shape. All right? In the year 2000, I'm pretty sure that those trucks probably, I think 2000, yeah, in 2000 they had a 5.3 liter engine. Okay? I think they came out with that 5.3 back in 1999. All right? Chevy did. So in 2000 it had a 5.3 liter engine, which is, the flagship engine of Chevrolet. That's what I'm thinking, calling it, for like trucks. It's a 5.3 liter. It's a good, reliable engine. All right? I'm pretty certain that this truck here has a 5.3 liter engine because it's a 1500. Okay? So the only things that have changed in these, besides little gimmicky items like rear view cameras and things like that, it hasn't really changed the value of this vehicle much. All right? The value of this vehicle hasn't changed much. What do I mean by value? What do you do with a truck? You can go from point A to point B with it, right? You can haul things with it. So you can do the same thing with this truck that you could do with that truck that you bought in 2000. Okay? And just to show you that it still has the same things that those trucks did back in 2000. If you weighed this truck and you weighed the truck from 2000, they would probably weigh about as much. Meaning what? Meaning that they probably have about the same amount of material as far as weight goes. They probably have around the same amount of steel, aluminum, glass, you know, rubber, all these things. So how is it that this truck today is twice as much, all right, as one of those trucks from 2000? It's not that the truck itself has really increased in value that much. I do understand technology and things like that, but trust me, computer chips are very cheap, all right? They make them, you know, by the hundreds of thousands, more than likely in China, you know, because that's probably where they get them from, or get most of them from. All right, so that's my point. What has really increased in value? There's really not been a big increase in value, just really an increase in price. Okay, I wanted to show you something else, and I wanted to show you this next slide because just in case some people say, well, yes, you know, in 2000 we could buy this or that for a certain amount, and of course it's going to cost more now, right? But they're going to, some people may use the argument of, well, you know, the price of, or the amount of salaries have been going up also. So the salary increases or the labor increases have been keeping up with the prices going up. So I just wanted to show you this right here. Okay, so in 2000, the average salary was, let's say, $55,000, right? Well, actually, this is showing that it went down to 51,000 from 2000 to 2012. But let's use the 55,000. You know, let's use the high price. Let's say in 2000 that the average household, the median household income was 55,000, right? Okay. So in 2018, the median household income is 61,000. Let's call it 62. That's $7,000 more. Okay, that's roughly just a little over 10%, right? Yeah, so roughly 10%. So salaries have increased in the last 18 years. The median salary, all right, the median income for a United States household has only increased by about 10%, but our purchasing power has decreased by 30+%, by more than 30%. So you see here, there's no keeping up with it, right? It's because the system is broken. The system was made so that we can be in debt for the rest of our lives. If we can't stay in debt, if everyone in America, if everyone in the US today was able to pay off all of their debt, our economic system would collapse. Because debt has to be created. Debt has to be increased year after year after year. In order for the system to survive, debt has to increase year after year after year. Okay? So if you take a look at this, our salaries, our median income in the US has increased by about 10% in the last 18 years. But the price of goods have gone up by 30+%. Okay? So this is a very slow, all right, and it's a creepy crawl method, a very slow way of taking a middle class, you know, economy and turning it into a two-class economy of the haves and the have-nots, right? It's a slow process that takes decades and generations, but it does work. And let's see what this is right here. Okay, and I wanted to show you something else. So even with the manipulative prices of precious metals today, even with how they are manipulated, you know, to the downside, check this out. So in the year 2000, the high for an ounce of silver was $5. Today, I'm going to call it $15 today, okay, to make it simple. I know it's in the middle 14s, you know, 1450, 1470, something like that. Okay, but I'm going to call it 15 to make it simple. So, had you been holding your wealth in silver back in 2000, today that silver not only kept up with inflation, all right, but it surpassed it. Okay, because if you had $100 in the year 2000 and you bought silver with it, today that you would have $300 worth of silver. All right, so if you had $100 worth of silver in the year 2000, today you would have $300 worth of silver. Okay, even with silver being manipulated to the downside as badly as it is. Okay, now some people are going to say, well, wait a minute, I had my money in the stock market from the year 2000, and even after 2008 that it took a big hit, I've already recovered from all that, and I've made more than 3 times my money. So this is what I would have to say to that. It's not your money. If you have money in the stock market, it's not your money. It is not your money until you take it out and until you spend it and turn it into something that's tangible. That's when it's your money. Okay? Because I could have $1 million in the stock market today, and tomorrow that $1 million can turn into 500,000 or into 100,000. Okay? So it is not your money until you take it out and use it and turn it into something tangible. Okay? That's when it's yours. All right, so, but yes, some people have made a whole bunch of money, especially if you're a trader and you really know what's going on with that kind of stuff. Then good for you. You know, use the system to your benefit. But the thing you want to ask yourself is, and this is how I am as far as it goes to wealth. I would rather not be a millionaire in paper and be able to feed my family with real assets. Okay? Because when you're a millionaire in paper, that paper can burn up anytime for any reason. It can burn up anytime for any reason. And you wouldn't know it, more than likely, until after it was done. And after the dust settles, maybe you were lucky enough to still have a little bit left. Whereas people that are holding physical in their hands, in their possession, all right, when the dust settles, they're still going to be able to live, and they're still going to be able to provide for their families and still maintain somewhat of a standard of life that was similar to that of which they had prior to some major crisis. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you real quick that gold has also done extremely well. Gold has actually done better than silver, right? In the year 2000, gold was selling, let's say $300 an ounce. Gold was selling, all right? We're going to round it up to make it easy. So in the year 2000, if you have 1 ounce of gold for $300, today you got $1,200. So that ounce of gold has gone up, you know, 3 times. I'm going to say 4 times its value. It's gone up 4 times its value. But however, you really only made a 300% profit, all right? Because, you know, if gold is at 1,200 today, 1,200 divided by 300 is 400. But you started, I mean, it's 4. 1,200 divided by 300 is 4. But you started with 300. So you really made about a 300% increase. But it's not about making the money. It's trying to show you that even gold has maintained its purchasing power, and it's gone above and beyond what inflation has been as far as the dollar goes. So if you were holding gold that you purchased back in the year 2000, you're doing a lot better now nominally than what you were doing back there, actually, because gold has actually outperformed the inflation of the dollar. So let's take a look at this. I don't even know what this article is about here. Okay, this is just an article that was talking about tariffs and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go over this one because it's pretty long. But I wanted to show you this real quick also. So in closing, I hope you stuck around, all right, for this part, because this part is actually a pretty important part of the video, I think. So I just wanted to show you, going all the way back to Franklin D. Roosevelt, okay? Franklin D. Roosevelt added $236 billion to our national debt, okay? And here it shows you all the years that he was in office and how much, you know, was added to the national debt, etc. Okay, it does that for each president. But I just want to show you something, and I'm going to see if you can figure out what it is that I'm going to tell you at the end of this chart when I get to our current status. Okay, so FDR added 236 to our national debt. Harry Truman actually did really good. He only added 7 billion to our national debt. Dwight Eisenhower added 23 billion to our national debt. JFK added 23 billion. LBJ added 42 billion. Richard Nixon added 121 billion. Gerald Ford added 224 billion. Jimmy Carter added 299 billion. Ronald Reagan added $1.86 trillion. Incredible. George H.W. Bush added $1.55 trillion. Bill Clinton added 1.36 or 1.4, let's say, trillion dollars. George W. Bush, George Jr., added $5.8 trillion. Barack Obama added 8.58 or 8.6 trillion dollars. Donald Trump so far in 2018 added $1.23 trillion. He's projected to add 1.2 trillion in 19, 1.2 trillion in 20, and 1.1 trillion in 21. What is the common denominator, ladies and gentlemen? Is that not one of these presidents lowered our national debt. So just like I said before, and I know here you see some surpluses and stuff like that. This is what matters. At the end of their term, they added. Okay? And for any one of you that say that Bill Clinton had a year where there was a surplus, he didn't. Okay? This is added to our national debt. Okay? So I do believe that there was 1 year where Bill Clinton had a surplus in the budget, where we had a surplus in the budget, but not our debt. Not where we actually paid off debt. Still ended up adding to our debt. Every one. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Here, let me show you this here. Let me see if I remember my history pretty well. Franklin D. Roosevelt, Democrat. Harry Truman, I think he was a Republican. Eisenhower was I'm not sure if he was a Republican or a Democrat. Kennedy was a Democrat. Johnson was a Democrat. Nixon, Republican. Gerald Ford, I think, was a Democrat. No, was a Republican, I believe. Jimmy Carter, Democrat. Ronald Reagan, Republican. George Bush, Republican. Bill Clinton, Democrat. George Bush, Republican. Barack Obama, Democrat. Donald Trump, Republican. What's my point? My point is that it doesn't matter. If anyone could at least understand this, if people would understand, it doesn't matter who is in office as far as the national debt goes, as far as money creation goes. You know why? Because they are not in power. It doesn't matter who is in office. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican or a libertarian or an anarchist or whatever. In order for this economy, in order for this economic system to continue, there has to be added debt every single year. All right? And what does that mean? That means that the future of our children is going to be thwarted with higher taxes, more regulations, all right? Because someone has to pay that debt over time, all right? Because the higher the debt goes, the higher the interest goes, all right? The interest payments go, okay? What else does that mean? That means that there's going to be more money creation. Doing what? The more money creation there is, the less valuable those dollars that you have in your pockets become. So the higher prices we're going to pay. So that was the last point that I wanted to make, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this little video. And like I said, you see all these faces? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in office. They are not in office for you and me. Okay? Look at all these guys. I'm sure that everyone who's listening to this video knows someone or has seen someone that's destitute. All right? that maybe they're hungry, they're starving, they don't have a home to live. All of these guys are very healthy. All right, every one of these guys are very healthy. All right, people talk about the medical system here in the U.S. All right, and people talk about medical system or healthcare system really much everywhere. Whether we want to be a right or what, that's not going to be my point here. But it doesn't matter what medical system we have. There's one thing I can guarantee you: these gentlemen up here, they have the best medical care that medicine can provide, and we pay them. They work for us, but they sit nice and happy, comfy, warm, getting fat on really good food. We pay them to live an awesome life that we could never live, and we pay them. We voluntarily give them our labor so that they can do with it what they want. The system is broken, and it's not going to get fixed until it gets really bad. But what really scares me is this. What scares me is that when the system finally does break and it gets really bad, 90+% of the people in this country are going to be saying one thing: where's the government? When is the government going to come and help? And they will do whatever the government tells them to do so that they can get a loaf of bread or a 5-pound block of cheese. Unfortunately, I hope that doesn't happen, but that's what I see happening, because they're going to create something that is terrible, and most people won't be able to overcome that, and they're going to ask the same people that put them in that predicament to help them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this short presentation. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you're all having a good day. Thank you very much for joining in today. I appreciate it, and I guess we will talk to you guys later on. All right, so have a great day out there, and thank you very much, everyone, for all of your support, and thank you to all the new subscribers too. I know we've had a few new subscribers in the last couple of days, so you'll be getting shouted out here this next Sunday. All right, so having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.